I was a younger fellow, ran for governor of Michigan. He'd been a businessman all his life, and the state just drove him nuts. And he finally decided to run for governor, and he ran for governor and won. And after he was governor, he went to Mount Pleasant, Michigan, to have a 4th of July celebration. The whole town was there, big, bunting in the stage and so forth. And he got up and he said, "It's sure great to be here in Mount Clemens." And the audience, there's this big ooh, they're all upset. And my mother, realizing his gaffe, leaned up and said, "George, it's pleasant, pleasant." He said, "Yes, it sure is pleasant here in Mount Clemens." So wrong and separately wrong. So it's great to be here in Mount Pleasant today. And it's pleasant here in Mount Pleasant. By the way, what a nice city center. As we drove through, you have a nice, if you're from New England, you call that a green, the town green. You probably call it a park in the center of town, a square. The square with all the shops all the way around it. Lovely, lovely community. There are not a lot of downtowns in America these days, particularly in rural America, that are as lovely as your town square. Congratulations. It is pleasant and beautiful in Mount Pleasant today. I didn't expect that I'd be doing this. I have to be honest with you. I don't just mean coming to Mount Pleasant, I mean running for president. This was not what I thought my life would lead me to. I spent my life in business, frankly, small business initially. I was at a consulting firm for 10 years. And then I started my own business, which was a business which was either starting other companies, it's called venture capital, or buying other businesses and trying to make them better. I tried to change things, make them better. And then I got a call one day from my wife. It was an unusual call at the office. She said, "Mitt, now don't say no right away. Hear me out." I thought, okay, what's this? She said, "I think you ought to leave the company you started, where you own all the voting stock. I think you ought to leave that company and go up to Salt Lake City and run the Olympic Games out there." And I said, "Ann, are you nuts? Are you crazy? Why in the world would I do that?" "No." Well, I got home and she began the process of indoctrination, and we had a opportunity to be out that winter time to go skiing out west, and I met some people out there, and long story short, I decided to go out there and run the Olympic Games, and that was the experience of a lifetime. I saw great people that helped organize the games, but particularly our athletes. We have a very unusual group of young people that represent this country. They love America, and they're hardworking and passionate and committed and loyal, and I loved the experience. Now, one unusual thing about it was that I was not a great athlete myself, and the idea that I was running the premier sporting event in the world was not lost on my sons. These 5 boys of mine saw the irony, and when they saw it in the paper, they called. My oldest son called and he said, "Dad, I saw USA Today this morning, and I talked to the brothers. We want you to know there's not a circumstance we could have conceived of that would put you on the front page of the sports section." And I was there. And I came home after having run the Olympics for 3 years, came home, and the people in the Republican Party in Massachusetts said, "We're in deep trouble. You're the only guy, given your Olympic experience, who we think can become elected governor as a Republican." I decided to run and won as a Republican governor in probably the most democratic state in America. And it was a great experience. It was a battle every day in some respects, but we got a lot done. And I loved what we were able to do because we changed things. Now, interestingly, in the private sector, you always change things. You're getting better every year. If you don't create a better product or service year to year, you'll probably go out of business. If you're in the farming community, you got to get better and better seed for your corn or your beans. If you're washing cars, you got to do a better and better job. Everything you do is got to get better, because otherwise a competitor will do better and put you out of work. And after living in a world like that, when I became governor, I found out nothing changes in Washington. Nothing changes in government. Everything stays the same. But if there's ever been a time we needed change, it's now. Our country faces some real challenges. We can't just keep on going down the same road. And there's as you know, a whole series of forces on us right now. We've got these global jihadists, these people who want to cause the collapse of all moderate nations, and particularly ours, and they're seeking nuclear weapons. That's one challenge. We've got another challenge. We're facing tougher competition coming from Asia than we've ever known before, China and India, and then there are our own domestic problems. We spend way too much money in Washington. We're using way too much foreign oil. We could be energy independent. We're not. Our schools aren't up to international standards anymore. Our healthcare system leaves 45 million people, 47 million without insurance. And immigration, we like legal immigration, but illegal immigration is swamping us. We got to end illegal immigration. So we've got challenges, and Washington just doesn't seem willing to deal with the challenges we have. I listened to Hillary Clinton the other day. She said she's the candidate of change. And I think she would change America. I agree. just not in the way, no thanks. Just not in the way we want. When she talks about the economy, she has her view of change, it's higher taxes. When she talks about foreign policy, it's defeat and retreat. Her approach, in my view, is the wrong approach for America. And that's why I don't think she'll get elected. I know a lot of people think, oh, the Democrats are going to win this season. I don't think so. I think Hillary Clinton will get 47, 48, 49%. I don't think she'll get the majority of Americans. I think people care about the direction of this country, and they don't want to take a sharp left turn with Big Brother and big taxes and big government. They want small taxes and individual responsibility and individual initiative. Now, if you ask me about what I believe in the principles of the Republican Party, principles of conservatism, if you will, the house that Ronald Reagan built. I'm not doing that, but I'll see if I can keep it up. No, anyway, the house that Ronald Reagan built, which is built on a coalition of conservatives, social conservatives, economic and foreign policy conservatives, that came together to build our party and to make America strong. And in my view, the one word that I'd use to characterize our party and conservatism is the word strength. We believe that a strong America is the best ally peace has ever known. And if you want to see a peaceful and prosperous America for your kids and their kids, you want to see America strong. And that means strong families with the values that are being taught to our kids so they can have a great future, a strong economy so we can provide for our kids and they can have great jobs as well, and a strong military to protect us. Now I want to fight for a strong family structure in this country. How do you do that? Well, one thing you do is make sure that kids understand that before they get babies, they get married. That marriage comes first. And in that regard, I think of the four leading contenders for president, and that's Giuliani and McCain and Thompson and myself. There's only one of the four of us who's in favor of a federal amendment to the Constitution to make sure that marriage is a relationship between a man and a woman. That's me. Strong families, strong economy. Hillary Clinton wants to have a strong economy by raising taxes on Social Security, by raising taxes on corporations, by raising taxes on incomes, by raising the death tax. I don't know if there's any tax she doesn't want to raise. Charlie Rangel just put forward yesterday a proposal to raise taxes in this country by the largest amount in the history of the nation. And there's no question. If you ask Hillary Clinton, would you sign that bill? The answer is, of course she would, because she likes raising taxes. Ultimately, she thinks that if there's a problem, government knows best, and she wants more of your money so she can solve problems by having government take them over. You saw the other day, she said she has 1 million good ideas for America, but we just can't afford them all. Well, we can't afford her. We can't afford the funding that she put behind all of her ideas. The right answer is to keep our taxes down, to kill the death tax once and for all. The right answer. By the way, I had a meeting in Nevada, and I was talking about my savings plan. See, I have a savings plan for all Americans earning $200,000 a year and less. And the idea is this, and that is that if you're earning $200,000 a year and less, that the tax rate on your savings, and that means the interest from the bank or for wherever, the dividends and capital gains you might get from your mutual fund, that the tax rate on those things should be absolutely zero. Yes. And I was describing that in Nevada, and someone pointed out that John Edwards has a tax plan to allows you to save $250 a year tax-free. And I said, whoop-de-doo. And I said, that won't buy you a retirement, won't buy you a car, won't buy you education or a house. And Bill Dio, whose son is in the state legislature, he piped up and he said, well, it won't buy him a haircut either. So my savings plan and my economic plan is keep our taxes down, get us off of foreign oil, secure our borders so we don't have illegal immigration swamping us. So we build a strong economy. So a strong family, strong economy, and the third is a strong military. And I think we're going to have to add about 100,000 troops to our active duty personnel. I want them to have better equipment and armament in the field so we can make sure they win whenever they're engaged in a battle. And I also want to make sure that when they come home, they get the care they deserve. So my plan is pretty simple. Strengthen America. We face challenges. What's the right way to deal with them? It's by strengthening America. Strengthen our citizens. Strengthen our homes. Strengthen our economy. Strengthen our military. That's what I'm fighting to do. Now I need your help to do that. And you have a few questions to ask me before you're going to make up your mind in that regard. So let me turn to you, let you ask questions that you may have. And by the way, do fill out those little cards. What color are they? Pink. I'm not sure whether they're pink. Maybe just let people be able to identify them. And fill them out. It'll let us know whether you're going to come vote at the caucus. I need you to vote, 3 or 4 times each at the caucus. Just kidding. Yes. What am I going to do with the ailing Social Security system? Well, we're going to have to fix it. And there are 4 ways, mathematically, to make sure that Social Security stays solvent forever. First of all, before I get to them, first of all, note that for our senior citizens today, they shouldn't worry at all. No one's going to cut their benefits or hurt senior citizens. The question is, what is Social Security going to be like 20, 30, and 40-year-olds, all right? That's the question. So how are we going to make it work for them? Well, there are 4 mathematical ways. One is you can raise taxes. That's what all the Democrats want to do. That's the wrong answer, because it'll slow down our economy and make it even harder to catch up. Number 2, you can do what President Bush thinks is a good idea. Let people take a portion of their Social Security earnings and invest in the stock market and invest in our nation. It's known as personal accounts. And that works mathematically as well. The other is to have people work a little longer, not retire as early. And the last is to have a lower rate of inflation on high-income people who are going to get Social Security benefits down the road. Now, the right thing to do is not to raise taxes. The right thing to do is let people have some portion of their earnings in personal accounts to get higher returns, and to consider the others. That's the path. It's going to have to be done. Republican and Democrats working together. We can't impose this on the Democrats. They're not going to impose theirs on ours. We got to get the job done. And I'm glad you bring it up, because it's really a critical issue. And we go on to Medicaid and Medicare. We've got to do the same thing. We've got to solve these problems. We can do it. In my state, I worked really hard to get health insurance for all our citizens. We're on track in my state for every citizen to have health insurance. And in the last year, half of those that were uninsured have become insured. But we did that Republican and Democrat working together, and we did it without raising taxes, without government taking over health care. We'll do the same thing for Social Security. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
What are your views on No Child Left Behind and strengthening education?
How do you strengthen education? And how about No Child Left Behind? I know it's not popular, but I support No Child Left Behind. And the reason I do is because I think it's a good idea to be able to find out which schools are succeeding and which are failing. And I know that the tests aren't perfect yet, and some states have got it done well and others don't. The law leaves the testing up to states to do it the way they want to do it. It's made a huge and positive impact in our state to do testing. But testing alone doesn't do that much. It just points out where the problems are. We did some other things when I was governor that I think made a difference. One is, we insisted that when kids come to our school, we end what was known as bilingual education. In my state, we used to have kids who come to school and their parents said, I wanted to learn in Spanish, so we taught them in Spanish. Or someone said, I wanted to learn in Cambodian, so we had teachers that taught them in Cambodian. This was their school experience, to learn in a foreign language. And we fought a ballot initiative, got it passed, so that now kids that come to our school system learn English. And we figured, to be successful in America, you got to speak the language of America. And so we fought. We also fought to protect school choice. I like charter schools. That's what we have in our state. We couldn't have vouchers. Our court ruled that we couldn't, but we can't have charter schools, so we have charter schools. I also fought to make sure that kids who do well on this exam, this graduation exam that we have, the No Child Left Behind exam, that the kids who do well get a special benefit, and it's this. If you score in the top quarter of those who take the test, the top quarter, graduating seniors, You now get in my state an Adams Scholarship, 4 years tuition free to higher education. And by the way, what have all these things led to? Well, every 2 years, the federal government has kids tested in the 4th grade and 8th grade in English and math to see how they're doing, and they stack up all the states. And Iowa was in the top quarter, as I recall, in those tests. It's known as the NAEP exam. My state came out, my 4th graders came out #1 of 50 states in English, and #1 of 50 states in math, and my 8th graders #1 in English and #1 in math as well. First time these last during these last 4 years where states have been #1 in all 4 measures. So these principles work, and I want to see our schools do better and better, because we're going to have to raise the bar. A couple things I couldn't get done that I wanted to get done. I want to pay better teachers more money.
Yes.
I want our best teachers to be better paid, and I want parents to be more involved in the education process. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My question is not iconic, but before I do my question, my mind and the mind of my family is made up.
Thank you.
My mother just became an American citizen.
Congratulations.
I told her that she will not.
You couldn't hear all that, but he said his mom just became a United States citizen, legal United States citizen. That's good enough.
I also said that I have an ironic question. Which border would you secure more, the Mexican or the Canadian?
Which border will I secure more, the Mexican or the Canadian? And the answer is, any place where we have a large number of immigrants coming into the country illegally.
Right.
That's where I'd secure first. So, for instance, we right now have a fence in San Diego, and the fence it's a double fence there, and there's about 100 yards between the fence. Each fence is about 10 or 12 feet high. I asked how many people cross there a day. They said about 100 try and get through those fences every day. I said, how many do you catch? They said about 40. About 60 get through. And so that's an area where you have a lot of people coming across the border. So any place we have a lot of people crossing is a place we ought to secure. One of the biggest areas, of course, for those that come to the country illegally is not people coming across the border, but people overstaying visas. People coming here with a visa for a holiday or something like that, and then staying forever. And so we're going to have to do a better job tracking people who come here and overstay their visas, as well as people who come across the border. This is all part of securing the border. But there's something else we have to do. We have to give to legal immigrants a card which identifies the fact that they are here legally and that they're able to work here legally. Because we welcome people with visas and so forth to work here, but the people who come here illegally wouldn't get that card. And therefore you say to employers, you can't hire someone unless they have a valid card. And if you do anyway, we're going to sanction you, just like we do for not paying your taxes. Once we do that, we stop illegal immigration and we protect legal immigration. Legal immigration, a great thing for our country. Illegal immigration, we're going to stop it. Thank you. What will I do to protect the lives of unborn children? And the answer to that is I am pro-life. As governor for 4 years, thank you, as governor for 4 years, every piece of legislation that came to my desk that related to life, I came down on the side of life. Now, of course, I will appoint justices to the Supreme Court who I believe will follow the law and follow the Constitution. And I believe that if justices are willing to do that, you'll see them overturn Roe v. Wade and return to states the authority to enact their own pro-life legislation. But I'll do other things. If, for instance, there's a challenge to partial birth abortion bans, and some state or someone else brings a challenge and it goes to the Supreme Court, I'll make sure my Attorney General is in there fighting for our pro-life position. And if there's a challenge to parental notification laws, I'll be fighting in favor of a pro-life position and doing my best to assure the sanctity of human life is being respected by our nation. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Fight to keep the trade balance equal, like for every post come in the country, it generally goes up.
Yeah, it's a darn good question. How are we going to do a better job protecting our jobs here? And the answer is, it's important for us to trade with the world. I want to open markets to our goods and services, but I want to make sure the trade is on a fair basis. And right now, we have allowed certain practices to develop which are not fair to us. One is the practice in China, of pegging their currency to ours in an artificial manner, such that everything you buy from China is substantially lower cost than it should be. And so they're growing like crazy as they sell products here at a deep discount. That's wrong. They also don't protect the property, or the intellectual property, the patents and the designs that we create. They take them and then distribute them around their country, and we don't get the revenue from it. So if a company like Microsoft comes up with a great new product, they take it, duplicate it, send it around, they don't pay Microsoft. And that contributes to our if you will, the current account deficit that we have with China. So one is to level the playing field and make sure people are playing by the same rules, and that we got to do. The other is we got to get embedded taxes out of our products. That's a complicated one, but we're not treated fairly on a tax basis around the world. Another is to get us off of foreign oil. About 1/3 of our trade imbalance is with China alone. About 1/3 is with oil-producing nations. We buy a lot of oil. We send about $1 billion a day out of our country into their countries to buy oil from them. It's not good for our economy, and it's sure not good for our foreign policy, and it's not good for our environment either to be using so much oil. We can become energy independent, and I will insist that we begin an effort in this country, just like the Apollo project when President Kennedy was president, to become energy independent. And that will also strengthen our posture in our economy worldwide. On all those bases, I'm going to fight to make sure that we're selling as much as we're buying from everybody else. Thank you. Yes, way back there.
I would like to know what your plan is on becoming energy independent, because over the last 6.5 years, we've actually stayed just oil dependent, and we're admitting more climate changing pollution. So I would just like to know what you think of the administration's policy right now on energy and what you would do differently.
We got to do more. I don't disagree with the administration. I just think we have to do a lot more. I think we have to say that we're going to have to develop more energy, and we're going to have to be more efficient in how we use it. And how do you do that? Well, I agree that ethanol is a great source of energy, and cellulosic ethanol probably down the road, and biodiesel and biofuels, and wind power and solar power. I also think nuclear power has to be a larger part of the mix. I think coal, clean burning coal, liquefying coal, where we can sequester the CO2 so it doesn't go into the atmosphere, all those are great sources of energy that we have to develop. We can be more energy efficient in our homes and our cars and in our workplaces. The combination of those two things can get us on a track to becoming energy secure, finally, and energy independent. And I believe we're going to do that. It's going to take investment. Right now we spend about, well, I mentioned, we spend about $1 billion a day buying oil from other countries. From people like Putin and Chavez and Ahmadinejad, we're buying energy from them. And they're using that money in many cases against us. That's got to end. You know how much money we spend researching new ways to reduce our dependence on oil? About $4 billion a year. So it's about $300 billion that we're buying. We're only spending $4 billion to find new ways to get away from the dependence on their oil. And I would spend substantially more to develop new sources of energy, public-private partnerships and liquefied coal or nuclear power plants. We're going to have to get more energy and not get it from people who are using the money against us. Hope that answers your question. Yes, sir. Okay, I'll repeat the question. One, two, three, four. Boy, I did something wrong. Okay. Hello? That was not working either. We'll see how we do here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, can you hear me back there?
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Well, let's see. Yours is working. You took away the one that's working, right? I'm just kidding. Thank you to Senator Kerry. The questions about stem cell research. Questions about stem cell research and how we work there. And let me tell you, in my view, what the best opportunities are with regards to stem cell research. In my view, we draw a line and say, we're going to do all sorts of stem cell research, and we can be effective, it's working out, we can be effective in stem cell research without having to cross, in my view, a bright moral line which I believe is crossed if you start creating new life for the purpose of experimentation and destruction. And so, and where we start creating new life for destruction is when we do something known as cloning, when we take new cells, put them together, and create new life. That I would not do. There's something known as embryo farming, where they take donor sperm, donor eggs, and then put them together in the laboratory and create brand new embryos and start experimenting on them. Those things I would make illegal. I think that's wrong for public or private sources. Where do I think the best place to be, where we can invest? I think we can invest in something, this is going to be complicated, it's known as altered nuclear transfer. You create something that's almost like an embryo, a brand new embryo, except it can't be a human embryo. You shoot enough genes in the chromosome that it can't become a human embryo, but it does have all of the characteristics of the stem cells needed for research. And it's been pioneered by someone in Stanford University called Professor Hurlbut. It does not present the moral dilemma, and it provides to researchers all the stem cells they need in a way that will hopefully find a way to eliminate and reduce the travesty of so many diseases that we face. Thank you. I'm going to take one more question and let you go to lunch. Yes. Have you already had lunch?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Was it good? Thank you. Good.
Recent polls, President Bush has dropped in but also even more significant in my mind, in some of the polls, the credibility of the legislators, the House and the Senate, are at abysmal levels more than ever before. So it seems to me the big challenge for you, when you become president, is how are you going to unify and establish credibility? Because now, we've got one, Republican, Democrat, saying this, and it's like, just the character and credibility is shot.
Boy, that's the credibility is shot. The partisanship is bothering most people. I mean, I have to be honest. I think a lot of Republicans, like myself, when we sent our folks to Washington, and Republicans had both houses, the House and the Senate, and the White House, we said, boy, things are really going to change now. We're going to cut back on spending, cut back on government. We're going to get some of these entitlement programs resolved and fixed, and somehow Republicans started acting like Democrats. And when Republicans act like Democrats, America loses. And so we're going to have to change Washington, starting with us. Now, my view is that, and you may find this shocking, I think Democrats love America too. If you look at our armed forces, we have a number of soldiers that are Democrats. Very few, but a few. No, I'm kidding. We have people in both. We all love America. Now, the challenge, it's as Ronald Reagan said. He said, it's not that liberals are ignorant. It's just that what they know is wrong. And what I found in my state, where my legislature is 85% Democrat, I found that we were able to work together. We were able to have, if you will, sufficient credibility to work together to get the job done. And that was so long as we weren't beating each other up on a personal basis. I didn't attack the leaders of the opposition party on a personal basis. We disagreed on policy, but not as individuals. Number two, we shared credit. When there were good things that happened, we gave each other credit for it. Number three, we found common ground. When we had very differing views, we said, well, is there some way we can find some common ground and make progress on that basis? I remember when I came to office, we had a $3 billion budget gap. And I think a lot of my Democratic friends thought they were going to have to raise taxes, a record amount in our state, to make up for a $3 billion budget problem. But I met with the leaders of the House and the Senate, and they said, well, we'd love to do this without raising taxes. And I said, so would I. I said, well, and I came up with an idea. Why don't you give me unilateral power to cut the budget? Give me the power to do it. I'll take the blame for the cuts, and we'll be able to balance our budget without raising taxes. And they did that. They passed a special emergency provision that said I had power to cut the budget. I did it. We balanced the budget, and we did that together. Our health care plan, we found a way to get everybody insured. Where Republicans and Democrats agreed, you'll find this interesting. When we got finished with our plan, there was no group I know of in Massachusetts, small business, big business, labor unions, the advocates for the poor, hospitals, doctors, no group opposed our plan. Everybody thought it was a good idea. That's unusual, isn't it? And when the vote came up in the legislature, we took the House and the Senate. If you combine their votes, it passed 198-2. So I believe that if you're willing to bury the hatchet, if you will, and work with the opposition party to actually get the job done, we'll be able to make progress. Maybe it's It's wishful thinking, but it's essential thinking right now, because this country faces some real challenges, and we're going to get the job done. Now, I just want to end with a brief personal experience that will underscore how important it is, in my view, that this nation remain strong and make the changes I've described. It was the visit in Boston of the former Prime Minister of Israel. His name was Shimon Peres. He's now been made the President of Israel. And he came to town. He was invited to speak at a department. And he spoke to some folks at a department, and someone asked him, "What do you think about the war in Iraq?" And he said, "Before I answer that, I have to put something in context." Long pause, and then he said, "America is unique in the history of the world." He said, in the history of the world, whenever there's been war, the nation that wins takes land from the nation that loses, because land has been the source of value on the planet from the beginning. And he said, one nation in history, and this during the last century, was willing to lay down hundreds of thousands of lives and take no land. No land from Germany, no land from Japan, no land from Korea. America. America is unique, he said, because America will fight for liberty for itself and for liberty-loving people around the world. It is essential that this nation remain strong. And by the way, Colin Powell added to that in his book. He said the only land America took after that great conflict last century was enough land to bury our dead. This is a unique nation. And that's why I'm so convinced we got to strengthen our families so our kids around the country get the values that, well, you call them heartland values. Get heartland values. And we have to strengthen our economy, not by taking away the incentives and the individual rights of our citizens, but instead by empowering our citizens. And we have to strengthen our military to make sure we'll be safe forever. That's what my campaign is about. I need your help. I need you to come in and vote at the caucus a few times. I've got a, look at that, I'm being handed a pink, oh, look at that. Fill one of those out. I'm not going to read the name here, but it says, "I will attend my caucus for Mitt Romney." I appreciate that. We'll make sure you get there. And come into the caucuses. By the way, what you do, look at this. Friends don't let friends vote Democratic. That's exactly right. That is great. Well, it's an honor to be, oh, look, I'm getting all sorts of stuff here. You can throw money up here, too, if you'd like. That is money. It's a check. Thank you. I want to say thanks to all of you for the time and effort you spend to get to know the candidates. And the review that you make, it serves the entire country. Because you see, most of the other states don't get to see us one by one. And people vote without knowing much about the candidate other than what they see in a 30-second TV ad. You provide in Iowa an extraordinarily valuable service. And I want to say thanks. I look forward to getting your help. I hope I win in Iowa. If I can win in Iowa, or at least do real well, that's going to help me win in New Hampshire, and then from there I'll keep on going, and I can become your next president. We'll make sure that Hillary Clinton stays at home, or stays in the Senate, or she won't.